Okay, in this video I'm going to be showing you, or at least introducing you to unwrapping, what it is, how to use the unwrapping interface, how to use the tools, and then I'm going to do a demonstration on an actual 3D model. So this will be a series of videos, and this will be the first video of the series, which will explain what unwrapping is. Now, there are some people who know what unwrapping is, but when you ask them to explain it to you, they kind of struggle. And I can understand that it is difficult to explain, especially to someone who doesn't know what unwrapping is. I'm going to try my best to make this as clear, as simple, and as understandable as possible, and hopefully I will succeed. But once again, unwrapping is something that's quite foreign to the average person, and definitely the beginner starting with 3D modeling. First things first, I've got two objects here, right? One's made up of just planes, the other one is just a simple cube. And I want to use this for my demonstration of what unwrapping is, and you know why it's necessary. So if you ever remember, maybe back when you're in school, when you're learning how to take a cube, right, or specifically take a piece of paper which was the net pattern of a cube, and you would have to then glue the edges and stick that together to form a 3D cube. Well, essentially that's what unwrapping is. This cube can be unwrapped like this. So now it's on a 2D surface now. It's just completely flat, right? It's not a 3D object anymore. It's just a 2D object now. So this can actually, if you went to top view, you've got your 3D cube now as a 2D object. But why is it necessary to unwrap a 3D object? Why can't you just leave it as is? Well, it all becomes necessary when you're creating your maps for your 3D art. So what are maps? Well, maps would be things like your textures. So for instance, you would have your diffuse texture, which would be like the main colors of, you know, your model. You would have your normal map, you would have your specular map, you would have your gloss map. Now I'm not going to go into those because this video is just to do with unwrapping. So it's necessary for you to unwrap so that you can create those maps. Why can't you just paint onto the object? Well, yes, there are techniques in which will allow you to paint directly onto a 3D object, and there are applications that do that. However, you still need to have your object unwrapped. And yes, I know there is another feature such as p-text, which I won't go into, which essentially allows you to paint without unwrapping, but that isn't really industry standard yet, so I'm not going to go into that. Most people, at least, who have been doing 3D art for a very long time, probably still prefer to use Photoshop for texturing, and that's primarily used to texture things in 2D, so you can't really bring this 3D model into Photoshop and just texture it. You probably get different plugins that can do that, but for the most part, people are going to texture in 2D when they use Photoshop. So they're going to need their 3D object to be flattened out so that Photoshop can understand how this 3D model will look like when it's actually unfolded on a flat surface. So it's definitely an extremely important step within the pipeline of 3D art. You have to be able to unwrap if you want to create 3D art. So it's absolutely essential. Okay, so hopefully that has sort of given you an idea of what unwrapping is and why it's necessary to do it. So make sure you stay tuned for the next video, which will be an introduction to the interface when it comes to unwrapping. Thanks for watching.